What's up, Curtis? What's up, man? How's it been? How's it been?
Oh, man, today was, well, it could have been better. It was kind of slow today. Didn't really get the hours I wanted,
Well,
but we're here.
little measly 20 hours. It wasn't enough. You had it. You wanted to get 40.
Yeah, I was shooting for that 20 a day, only ended up with a little bit of like six.
Oof. Oof. Yeah,
Six. So,
six is tough. Six is tough. It ended up being a better day for me. I ended up getting like 17.6, which I mean, it it was I think it was one of my better days this week, which doesn't compare to your better day this week because you had
well,
a 36-hour day. Like, how did that even happen? What did you do?
I
15
mean,
evaporator cars?
15. Oh, no, that's probably like two, but no, it just, I had some upsells all come together at one day and it was able to get it all done. Like I did some work on the day before, rolled into yesterday, and then just kind of close it all in one day. So it seems like a big day, but it's a lot of work from 2 days. But you get tomorrow off,
Yeah. But
so I mean,
but I do have drill this weekend, which means I'm working all week.
oh well, that's a different type of work. I feel
Yeah, that's a
like
different type of work.
that's I don't know if that's better or worse than being a technician.
Well, the government shutdown just ended, so it looks like I should be getting paid for drill. So
That's
like
good.
God willing that happens. So at least I don't
Yeah,
have to
that's
go.
awesome. Then I mean, as long as you still enjoy going, right, and doing drill.
Yeah, I still enjoy it. Especially we got the military ball this weekend, so I'm gonna be bringing my
Oh,
significant other.
really fancy.
I'm gonna post a video. I'm gonna post a video of me marching because I'm an NCO, so I got the NCO sword. So I'm in the ceremony. So I'll be like,
Speaking of the military and marching, our guest today has a little military background himself.
exactly. An officer. I'm enlisted, so sir,
Oh,
sir,
peasant, just a peasant here.
sir. Just the best.
Yeah, today we have Chris Craig from, you might know him from TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, or maybe you've read his book, How to Become a Better Service Professional. You might have seen him at some training or even on Rockhead. You do Rockhead there at your dealership? Your camera, the camera's sliding.
Dude, I
Well,
tried to get through it, bro.
while Jaleel gets this camera fixed, we're gonna slide right into the episode here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back at it again with Way the Technician podcast. Your wonderful hosts are here at the bottom. Jalid, as you know it, and Curtis right beside me. And we have a wonderful, splendid, special, also a Lord of the Rings fan guest above me, Chris Craig from Rockhead. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, man. We both enjoy and we've seen your content. If you have any things that have been going on recently, can you please tell and a little backstory just for the people that don't know you yet?
Yeah, of course. Gentlemen, thank you for having me here. Of course, I've seen both of your content as well, so thank you for that. Obviously, I am an automotive content creator on social media, but I am also a content creator and the tech school project manager for Rocked. Rocked is an app-based mobile learning platform. It creates micro learning videos. So think of those like TikToks, those YouTube shorts, those Instagram reels, right? That short form video content, but much more intentional. We'll take 33 videos, for example, string them together all about brakes, product knowledge, maintenance information, how to sell and overcome objections. We'll make that an actual dedicated curriculum that you would consume, let's say 6 minutes a day over the course of a month. And at the end of that, you can actually be assessed on that and earn an industry recognized certification in brake sales, for example. And we have that for tires, we have that for maintenance. And we just recently launched our certification, Basic Tools for Technicians, as well as video inspections endorsed by True Video. So that's what I do for Rocked, and also an author of my book, Becoming a Better Service Professional.
Wow. An
Yeah, I was gonna
author.
say that's a pretty impressive you know tally of tasks you got there between content creating for yourself, content creating for Rocked. That's actually how I met you, is through Rocked. Reached out, said if what can I do to help? And that's how we got connected, is through there. We use that platform at Audi, so I'm very familiar with it and can explore all the content, which is fun. It's very exciting to use that short form content in a productive manner.
Yeah, and I got to give Curtis a shout out too. I mean, Curtis, you've dedicated a lot of your time and effort to reviewing different outlines and scripts like that as one of our subject matter experts. I know we've worked together on at least more than one project. I want to say you've looked over at least 2 or 3 of different projects I have. So like how we create content at Rock Ed is it's not just like one person in a closet somewhere typing away. It's a bunch of people across the United States, Canada, all this stuff in between. So we'll reach out to subject matter experts like both of you, like Curtis, like because I've worked with you before, and we'll get their input and their insights and try to bake in all that different experience across the United States. And that's what's really cool about the Rocket app is maybe there's a really great technician mentor working in a Florida shop somewhere, but I live in California. I would never get exposed to that. But now through platforms like Rocked, for example, I can get exposure to that person's mentorship and the information they have and their experiences. And that's really what we bake into our curriculums to make the most relevant and actionable lessons that we can possibly create.
It gives you the opportunity to learn from those people, like you said, like a mentor. And I know you use some content creators as well, and you get to meet them and learn from them in a way that you usually wouldn't see on social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a lot of fun working with, a lot of the content creator friends that have been blessed to be able to meet throughout just creating content on social media. Check Engine Chuck and Diesel Tech Chris, they were the first two that I kind of pulled in. We worked together on that first initial curriculum technician onboarding, which is all about like soft skills and things of that nature. Just recently, we launched our basic tools for technicians. That was Mechanic Link and myself that we worked together on that, and more to come, more to come. So yeah, it's been a really good trip.
That's pretty awesome. Jeez. Now that you've spent like most of the time now has been being spent like almost in a way training the people in the service lane and helping technicians as well as being an author as well. How did the time spent in the actual workforce? Like when did that start and how did it even go for you? Any insight on that?
Yeah, so I went to the Pennsylvania College of Technology. I earned my associate's degree in automotive technology, as well as my bachelor's degree in automotive technology management. I graduated in 2018. While I was in school, I was a technician in an independent shop, and I also worked parts retail as a manager. So that was my automotive experience while I was in school. After I graduated, I also commissioned as an officer. We were talking before the show a little bit about our military backgrounds, and I went to Fort Lee for a while for my basic officer leader course that you have to take when you commission. When I returned back home, that's when I took my first job in a dealership as a service advisor at Toyota. So very small shop. There was only 2 advisors, myself and one other. We had 8 technicians. 2 of them, or maybe 3 of them, were lube techs, and then we had 2 main line guys, and that was the whole team. We maybe did 4 appointments an hour. It was like a slow pace, a good starting store for me, family owned and operated. And then I took an opportunity after that in Nashville, Tennessee. So I moved from Pennsylvania down to Nashville, started working in a Ford dealership. About a week into that job, I shook hands with a girl who is now my wife that I met there, which was pretty cool. Yeah, and I worked at Ford for a long time, and then Chrysler for a little while, and then back at Ford for a while. So I worked in 4 different stores total. I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's really what inspired my content because I've worked in some of those real like nightmare status stores. I've seen the bad stuff, right? I've seen how bad it can actually get. And to give you numbers on that, the one store I worked in 24 months, they went through 32 service advisors. I mean, that's pretty significant, and
Wow.
turnover is a big thing in this industry. I mean, JM&A put out some statistics from 2019, and they revised them recently. Don't quote me. I don't want to say it's like 2022 or 2023. They revised these numbers, and it's still the same. And what they actually found is that dealer-wide annual turnover in the United States is at 46%. For salespeople on the sales floor, it's 80%, and for service advisors specifically, it's 49%. And what that means is if turnover for service advisors is 49% in dealerships, that means that as a consumer, when you walk through the door of a service lane, you look around, half of those people wearing polo shirts, statistically speaking, will not be there in the next 12 months. And that's a serious thing because service advisors are there to create relationships with customers. Let me ask you guys a question on your own show. Can you tell me, what do you think is the total worth of one customer to a dealership over their lifetime? This is sales, service, financing, everything, life to end of life. What's that number? What do you think? If you had a guess.
The lifetime of that customer.
The
Yeah,
value, yeah.
I buy a car there, I service it there, I trade it in, I buy finance another one over the course of my life. One person. What's that dollar amount? What do you think?
I don't know, maybe $1 million. I don't
A
know.
million? Okay. Curtis, what do you think, man?
I was thinking about 700,000 is probably what I would
700,000.
think.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to put you on the spot on your own show, man. You guys are actually probably pretty close to today's number. So the number I have is from 2006, and money's changed since 2006. There's a really good book by Carl Sewell. I recommend everybody reads this book. See, I'm a terrible marketer for my own book because I'll be on here recommending everyone else's books. But this book by Carl Sewell, it's called Customers for Life. You see, Carl was going through this situation where he had an oil change customer that didn't want to pay for the oil change after it's been completed. Now, we've all dealt with this. The only thing in this situation is that the dealership did nothing wrong, and the customer actually admits that. They just felt that that day, for whatever reason, I shouldn't have to pay for this. I've been servicing here for whatever long, whatever the reasoning was. Nothing bad happened. They're just like, I knew how much it was going to cost. I just don't want to pay for it. So they're agonizing. They're thinking to themselves, like, do we charge this customer or not? Like, what's the right answer here? We did everything right, but it's also a good customer. So what's the answer here? Well, what Carl did is he sat down and he said, well, what's the lifetime worth of one customer to my dealership? And it was a Cadillac dealership in Texas around 2006. So these numbers have probably changed. But what he found was it was about $516,000 per one customer over the lifetime of their servicing at that dealership, and sales and all that other stuff in between, everything combined. That's when Carl realized that, this customer wants a free oil change today. I think I'll do that, because if I were to pay for your oil change and you're going to give me $500,000 back in return over the course of your life, I think that's a pretty good investment. You can only, I say all that to say, you can only get that 500,000, 250,000, or whatever that's going to be from that customer over the course of their life in business if you develop a relationship with them. And to develop a relationship with them, you got to spend time with them, and you got to spend more time than 6 months to 8 months to 9 months to 12 months and then turning over your staff in order to get access to that type of income from that customer. So if we have service advisor turnover annually at 49% across the United States, how do you develop a relationship with your customer that turns into a profitable endeavor for the dealership and everybody in between? That really plays into our technicians as well, right? Because who's the one selling the jobs and doing the things and trying to support the technician? As a technician, you guys tell me, is it not frustrating when the service advisor staff is turning over and you're constantly working with new people and they're trying to learn the processes and stuff like that? It's a very difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the video inspections, it helps you really meet your technician, learn about your technician, and
Sure.
It's growing, that's for sure.
And I also believe it's a big part on the dealership to hire the right type of service manager to think about that in the wide grand scheme of things, to think about, hey, they're putting their complete money into this over their lifetime period. I got to think about it, especially because I can see a lot of service managers thinking like there's like short-term goals, like today or this month, am I going to hit budget? Like, let's say I don't want to give them, maybe we messed up something on their car and I don't want to give them this for free or something just because of budget and stuff. But then like it's the dealership's job or the GM's job to hire people that are going to think about the grand scheme of things and think about the business instead of themselves and their own money. So I think, yeah, that's a great point you made right there.
Yeah, and there's something I say when I do in-person training now and again, and when I do in-person training in front of a bunch of service advisors, and there's some technicians that sit in on it as well. I really get the point across that the service advising staff, especially, I call them the chief retention officers. And the reason I say that is when customers think about the dealership, they don't think about the general manager, they don't think about the owner, they don't think about the salesperson that sold in the car. The face that comes to mind is the service advisor, because they see that person on average 5 times more often than anyone else in the store. And I'll take that a step further. The person they see more often than anybody else, depending on if your store is set up this way, is that less experienced maintenance service advisor. Okay, so that person that we just hired that's entrant level that we put over in the maintenance department because they're just writing oil changes and stuff like that, they can handle that. Not the main shop people handling the repairs and the recalls and stuff, like really representing the brand. The people that represent the dealership are sometimes the most entrant level service advisors that we have on staff. And that's incredibly important for those young people to especially understand.
Yeah, even porters, people that park cars, that's like the
Valets.
first introduction, the first person you see when you come to a dealership, and you'd obviously want them looking squared away, talking eloquently, and you don't want to see trash when you're coming into the dealership. So yeah, that's also a very good point.
That's right.
It starts from, like you said, the valets, our porters, valets, whatever you want to call them. They the ones at our store have black pants. They have a dress shirt with a black tie, whether it's 100 degrees outside or 30 degrees outside. They're that first point of contact, and whether they're coming for a car wash or they're coming in for service. Like you said, you're going to see those same few people. And if you can't retain service advisors, or if you can't retain, professionals in general, that's a problem where you got to kind of dig deeper in and figure out what are some of those underlying causes. I saw something actually today that it said 74% of customers come back to the dealership if they bought a car there. And then 74%, like you said, if you can get that much back on your service drive, and you can get your familiar service advisors who have been there for more than a year, hopefully through the life of a car, then they're more likely to trust that person.
Yeah, I mean, the saying goes, right, that the sales department sells the first car and the service department sells every car thereafter. Because if I buy a car at a dealership and I take it in for servicing and I don't like what happens, and I take it back in, I don't like what happens again, and I take it in the third strike you're out, I start servicing somewhere else. Where am I buying my next car? Well, it's probably going to be who I'm servicing with.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, they Julie, you look like you were about to say something. I was like, but no, I was gonna say is funny is because I've heard of some things, and if a company does a great job and maybe a customer doesn't like a car, I've seen lots of times where our customers won't like an Audi, and they'll go and they'll say, hey, I want to buy a Mercedes, but I want to buy it from you. And they will drive 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to buy from the same company where not the same service advisors, but the way that service advisors are trained is the same. And they have that same relationship with the company. And so people will drive, we have customers that drive 3-4 hours for service because they enjoy it so much. They come and see those familiar faces, familiar experience, and overall they just will keep coming back for life. You said customers for life.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's the book title. See, I'm not marketing my book at all right now. I'm totally marketing Carl Soule's. But anyways, I always joke about that. But the reason that's really behind that is for a customer specifically. Car service is an emotional thing. The reason is when you really break down what is a car, like what does it mean to me? Well, I have a Jeep Gladiator that's currently sitting in my driveway. The keys are hanging just by the door. I can hop in that right now and I can go wherever I want for whatever reason I want to. I might have to answer to my wife on that one, but I have the freedom to do that. And that's the whole point here is that vehicle in my driveway represents my freedom to go where I want, when I want, for whatever reason. I don't really think about that. None of us really consider it that way. We don't know, however, what we got until it's gone. So when we pull into a dealership, for example, and I have to hand those keys over, and I don't know when I'm going to get them back, and maybe they're telling me it's going to be overnight for a diagnostic, we're going to have to order parts, all this kind of stuff, and I know that I'm out at least 24 hours without my vehicle, all of a sudden it kind of like washes over me that my freedom is kind of in a way gone at this point, because now I'm at the whim of my friends and my family and the bus route and maybe Uber and all these other things. And I have to figure out my logistics. I got kids that got to get to school. I got to get the groceries home. I got to get to work. I got to do all these different things. It's a very emotional event when you drop your vehicle off for service. We're not even talking about what's it going to cost. Is my warranty going to cover it? All of these different factors that are going to play into it. Is the part even available? How long is it going to take? All this different stuff. Do I have to finance a new vehicle? What am I going to do? It's very, very stressful. It's very, very emotional. And customers will always seek out familiar companies and people that they know in order to handle those things because it's a trust thing.
Yeah, it's basically someone's second most expensive purchase in their life is a vehicle, and it's hard. It's like a personal connection, an emotional connection to it, and like you said, it's when you take away that freedom, and not just from a sense of what are you going to do for 24 hours, but that kind of ties into, I guess, what this podcast and show is kind of about is the value of technicians. When you come and say, if you have technicians who can repair that car in a timely manner, fix it right the first time, you trust them, and they trust the place where they work at is, you know, how are some of the value of technicians being undervalued right now in the industry from what you're seeing? I mean, you seem to know a lot more expansive range of those types of things.
Yeah, I'll give you some interesting little stats I actually pulled this week. I did some research into this just this week. I'm always diving into this, but I was just pulling some random stuff, and you might have already seen it. I posted it and stuff, but I'll go over it real quick. So it turns out that in 2025, there's 289 million light-duty vehicles, SUVs, and passenger vehicles registered in the United States in 2025. That's 289 potential vehicles for us to service and fix and solve for. On average, modern vehicles have around 30,000 components in them, all working in harmony to make that vehicle run. Now, these components include the individual bolts and the seals and things like that, but that's 30,000 different things to pay attention to and to look at, right? Additionally, on top of that, if you look at your standard DTC codes and your standard, not your standard, but like your OEM different potential fault codes, you're looking at anywhere from easily 15 to 20,000 different fault codes that could present itself in a vehicle at any given time. It's a lot of different directions to start searching in when you have a diagnostic, and sometimes you don't even get a code. On top of that, there's about 5,000 feet, which equals out about to 1 mile of wiring in modern vehicles. You know, every vehicle has HVAC, every vehicle has electrical systems, they have plumbing systems, hydraulic systems, mechanical systems. I always say that automotive is every other industry on wheels, right? Because you got to know all these different things. So the value of a technician, from where I'm looking, is definitely incredibly high. I mean, there's got to be incredible value in our industry because a technician, as you know, can go to any other industry and survive just fine. Because I know how HVAC works. I can go to that industry right now and just be an HVAC tech. I know electricity, so I can go to construction and be an electrician, right? I can do that. I know how hydraulic systems work, so maybe I just start servicing lifts and things like that. Because I know how all these systems work because vehicles have these systems in them. Vehicle service is incredibly important. When you look in the back seat of a lot of the vehicles you check into the dealership, there's typically a car seat back there or something like that, right? Like these things carry people's families around, and what we do or do not do to these vehicles can drastically affect the safety of those people that drive that vehicle and the people around them. So the value of a technician, in my opinion, is actually tenfold when you compare it to any other trade.
Maybe you should say that louder a little bit.
No, yeah,
Can't quite hear you on that one, but
yeah,
I
not a
think
lot of people even go into it that deeply. Like we all know this in the back of our heads. Like everything goes into the vehicle, and I mean, there's so many different components moving in at the same time, and so many different components coming from different places just to make one car, that one
Yeah.
car that's driving down the street. But I mean, I feel like it's almost not addressed quite enough, especially how you just said it, man. We should put you on like a billboard and just like have you repeating it through New York City, Times Square, and just drilling into everybody's head that's walking by. Because I mean, you couldn't have said it better than that, man. That's great to hear.
Yeah, we had someone recently talk about, like you just said, the safety aspect of it. We talked about the brakes and the ability to stop the vehicle and how safe and how important that is, and how careless some technicians are and how underestimated the value of a good brake job is. So I think there's both sides that says if technicians want to earn more, they want to be respected higher, what can technicians do, or what have you seen that would raise that value to live the part of what, you know, the quality is, what you're describing here, the level of importance?
Yeah, I mean, the advice that I give to technicians, and it's hard to hear advice, right? I mean, we're all on social media. I get it in my comment section quite a lot because I'm like the service advisor on social media, though I've got a technician background and stuff. But it's a tough climate out there right now. I mean, Tech Force has it that we're short 800,000 technicians, and in the next 5 years, we're going to be short about 1 million, is what we're looking at right now. We know that data suggests that we're actually losing technicians more often at the entrant level in the first 6 to 12 months of employment. So these people are coming out of automotive schools, they're coming off the street, they're starting their jobs, and we're losing them in 6 to 12 months. But by the time we lose them in that 6 to 12 months, somebody off of a tool truck probably sold them a $16,000 toolbox with 25 to 30% APY. So now they're buried in debt with a toolbox that they can't drive to work and they can't even afford to fill. And then you talk about having to actually fill that toolbox. I mean, they're in a tough spot, right? And then you got some of those seasoned older technicians that made it to the main shop, and their reward was getting their pay slashed in half because now they're doing all the warranty work because they're skilled enough to do it, and they're dealing under warranty times and all those sorts of things that you have to deal with. I mean, you got to update everything after you repair it too, right? I repair a lift motor that opens up the hatch of a vehicle, and we got to reprogram that thing, and that's going to take time in my bay. I mean, it's a frustrating position that we find ourselves in for a lot of different reasons. But the advice that I give to technicians right now is do your best to not simply air complaints. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Simply compare yourself to who you were yesterday and continue to ask yourself, how can I be a better technician? How can I better position myself in my career? How can I progress my career in the here and now? I always tell people that it's much better to first look in the mirror before you start looking out of the window. Now, I've listed off a lot of statistics here just to show how everything feels like it's pretty stacked against technicians right now. In a lot of cases, it is. But there are certain situations where technicians don't do themselves any favors by just throwing their hands up and saying, "Ah, I quit," or "I'm not going to continue on," or "I'm just going to get on social media and complain in the comment section somewhere." So there's some degree of personal responsibility in there, and that kind of plays into the attitude and the behavior domains of training and things of that nature, soft skills, if you will, that technicians can focus into. But the whole point there is to really just keep your head up and just continue to pursue your career, even if there is that headwind there.
Buy the what do we say? What do we say, Jay? Buy the dip. Get in now because this change is coming and it's gonna be quick when it happens.
100%. Hey, just put your feet in the puddle. That's what I said that one time.
We've always been we've been talking about how it's like it's hard now, and there's a lot of conflict between both sides of the party here, and I think between what people like the three of us are doing for the industry, the messages we're pushing, the companies that we're working with or for. I know Rockhead's doing a lot of stuff for entry level technicians. There's a lot of things moving, and I think a change is coming, and it feels stagnant and it feels hard, but something's coming, and it's going to be those techs that stuck it out for a couple years, and they really learned the trade. They learned how to survive, whether it's on hourly or flat rate. And then when business is booming, they're going to be there right in that wave to the top because they were able to endure some of these hard times and pressure from social media and customers and other technicians.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I can give you the social media perspective of things. I can always reliably know that a post is going to do pretty well when I start talking about the negative, right? When I just start talking about technicians are dealing with this and this is happening in the industry tomorrow. And when you do those kind of posts, it tends to perform better because that sort of outrage is what people like really get engaged with. And like, oh, me too, I want to comment. You know what I mean? Like it just raises those emotions. And it's just like when you have a customer that has a bad experience in a dealership or a store or anything like that, it's usually the ones that have the bad experience that feel the most motivated to leave a review. You got to kind of like talk those other customers into leaving that review sometimes. And you got to let them know, hey, we really do enjoy getting reviews back, like when they're happy, because a lot of times when somebody's happy, they're just not going to say anything because, well, they're good. Like why say anything at all? So uh, the positive vibes got to be there to some degree. I do agree. There's some shifts coming. Things are turning around. Things are going to get better. There's conversations happening. I mean, we saw the Ford CEO had this interview that people went gangbusters over, right? I mean, I did my own post. We all did our perspective post on it. But the take that I took on that wasn't I'm going to start slamming the Ford CEO as if he's actually going to watch my video. I simply kind of dissected what he was saying with some statistics that I know on my end to be true or not true. And I basically ended the post by saying I'm really glad actually that the Ford CEO gave this interview because while I didn't agree with some of the things he was saying as far as like why we have a shortage of technicians or why it takes 2 weeks to get your vehicle into a Ford dealership, for example, I know there's parts issues. I worked there. At least back when I was working there in 2022, we could not get parts or engines or anything like that. So that definitely caused part of that strain, technician shortage as well. But I was glad that he gave the interview because it got people talking about it and it got people talking about it at a higher level. So when you have somebody at like the Ford CEO level having these conversations, I get personally excited because like they're starting to kind of take notice. Like this is a problem. How do we turn it around? And that how do we turn it around conversation is where people get involved and we actually start finding solutions. because you have to identify the problem first, right? And to therefore identify the solution. You can't really identify a problem by complaining about the symptoms of that problem. You have to get in there. As you know, with cars, you have to diagnose it. Imagine you pull a vehicle into your bay with a check engine light and complain at it until it fixes itself. That's not going to work. We know this. So we have to
Yep.
get in there with the tools, with our knowledge. We have to keep a level head, be logic about it, and we have to solve the problem.
Exactly. I mean, also, I've been seeing recently we had a Jay from Wrenchway on our podcast,
Great
and
guy.
yeah,
Love him.
great
Yeah,
guy,
he's great. He's a great
awesome
guy.
guy. And we also spoke about the technician shortage and how we can kind of get in the back room to see why there's a technician shortage, why technicians are in mad at the industry and discontent with the industry, and so that they're doing this ASC related technician survey. So, and I just posted about that today. Curtis just posted about it as well. And I feel like if more technicians go in there and actually say how they feel and write how they feel, then I mean, corporate level with still remaining anonymous can get a better feel about like how to fix certain things or certain dealers in general. And that was Toyota Motors North America that actually like put it on their TSA website. So that's like a great thing. I think that's how you kind of get the ball rolling towards healing the automotive industry, not putting it back down.
Yeah, no, when sometimes when I'm making content, for example, I'll say something to the tune of like, I don't know everything and you don't know everything, but together we might be able to figure it out. And actually, I owe Wrenchway a post. I got to post about that survey too, because I know it's out there. I've got links and everything ready to go. So I owe them that post, probably coming out early next week. But I did my own survey too, actually. The technician training needs analysis. I interviewed 11 industry experts, ranging from college professors to technicians to shop foremen and shop owners. I took what I got out of those questions, those open-ended questions, and I forged out of that 5 questions with multiple choice options, select all that apply, for example, or scaling 1 to 5 questions that I sent out to my social media platform. I had 804 automotive professionals respond in about 13 days, which was pretty cool. In my opinion, there was no incentives or anything, no gift cards. So people just actually filled it out. And that data was super telling. It had a focus on soft skills. So like time management, proper documentation, all these kind of things. I want to call out proper documentation real quick because I actually read on a post just recently. I can't remember the manufacturer, but somebody was complaining about how they don't get paid diag time for a manufacturer. And somebody else commented and said, well, you actually can. You're just not writing your story properly, because sometimes you get paid more diag on a warranty diagnostic than you can customer pay with this certain manufacturer. And it escapes me which one it is. But the point is sometimes those soft skills, like how to properly document what you did to a vehicle, helps a technician earn some more of that flat rate that they feel like they're missing. So soft skills are important. But one question that I want to tell you about that I found very interesting on that was question number 4, actually. I remember them all. The question was, on a scale of 1 to 5, how often are entrant technicians deficient in the following areas? 2 of the response options was motivation and effective communication. Now, all 804 people had to answer for each one of these. So they had to scale it 1 to 5, right? The number one answer that I got from all 804 people on that survey for effective communication and motivation was option 3, which is neutral, which means no opinion. Now, I don't know how long you guys have been around the game, but I have not met too many people in this industry that don't have an opinion. So I found that kind of interesting. So what I did is I said, let's dig deeper. Let's take this sample and let's filter it by leadership roles. So I took out all the service managers, all the shop owners, all the shop foremans. If you had a title that suggested to me you were a leader, I took you out and I put you to the side. I then went over to that side and I ran the question again. And I found that the same pattern remained. All of our leaders, for the most part, said neutral, meaning I do not know how often my entrant technicians are deficient in their effective communication skills and motivation. So then I had to sit back and say, what does this mean? Is this useful to me or not? Can I actually do something with this data? So I had to put myself in the leader's shoes, and I would have to ask myself, how would I know if my entrant technicians were deficient in these 2 categories? And then it hit me. Well, I could talk to both of you, for example. I could ask you questions and you could respond to me. And while you're responding to me, I would be able to gauge how well you can communicate effectively. because you'd have to listen to my questions and respond and use your words and stuff like that. And I'd be like, okay, they can communicate pretty well. And then as I shift to different topics, maybe I go to flat rate, maybe I go to productivity, maybe I go to career progression, and I notice your body language elevate. I notice your tone and inflection elevate. And I notice it come down. Then I get an idea of what motivates you, or if you're motivated about this industry at all. So I can actually figure out how well you can effectively communicate, and I can figure out how motivated you are, even in an entrant level, but I have to do it by talking to you. So, since we have leaders who answered this question neutral, meaning I don't know how often my entrant technicians are deficient in their communication skills and motivation, we can deduce from that that it potentially indicates that leaders are not talking to entrant level technicians enough. We also know, as I said earlier, that we're losing most of our technicians in the first 6 to 12 months of employment.
It sounds like you might have the formula to something juicy here.
I've been digging into this for a while, Curtis.
Another book.
Yeah, another right. Book, yeah, I need another life of time.
Speaking about the book, is it possibly that you could give us like a summary rundown, or anybody who's watching, about what it is about?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So my book is called Becoming a Better Service Professional, and that's the mantra of the entire thing, right? I truly believe that even if you're not willing to admit it, that deep down every human being has this innate want to be better at whatever their craft or discipline is. We all want to rack and stack and get better and things like that. So becoming a better service professional, while it does lean towards the service advisor side of things, it's for anybody in the automotive service industry. The book starts out with simply me talking about what the roles are in automotive, the departments, like just really laying the groundwork of this industry. And then from there, I start diving into some different things. Like, for example, any service facility generally is going to have 3 operating systems. It's going to be the customer service system, the shop production system, and the business operations system. And knowing like what those systems are and how they play together helps you to understand how automotive service in general works. I think that's useful for everybody, technicians included, because if you know how the game is played, then you know how the game is played, and you can progress your career in those different directions. For example, I mean, I started out as a technician and I fell in love with the management side of things. That's why I went for business management and things like that once I got into my 4-year degree. So I also talk about breaking down different pay plans, understanding those, what those mean. I like to add that in there because, well, I mean, I get a lot of DMs from service advisors that say, "Hey, Chris, I get 20% of my gross profit at this new shop. Is that good?" I have no idea. I'm like, "Well, how do you not know? You're supposed to be the guru." It's like, well, are you getting 20% of a watermelon or 20% of a grape? That kind of makes a difference. So you got to dive into those things. So I put a chapter in there about that. And then I wrap up the book. So this is really kind of like a journey, right? I wrap up the book with chapter 11 is all about mindset, a balanced mindset. I'm not saying a positive mindset. I think you can go too far in that direction. I'm not saying negative. I'm saying balance. So we talk about a balanced mindset. And then chapter 12 is called leadership, because that's ultimately the trajectory, right? We start out by learning how the industry is put together, and we want to end up to some degree as a leader. And by the way, gentlemen, like even if you don't get a leadership role, you're still going to be a leader, at least by example. And that's super important.
Well said. Well said. And I should actually buy your book, because I also want to kind of cross over into the management side. I'm always asking my service manager how everything works out, effective labor rate, gross profit. I always ask the service advisors, "Hey, how much money are you making off of this ticket compared to me?" When they're getting like a 7% of total gross profit for parts and labor, and I'm like straight flat rate. So I dive into the numbers and stuff, because I mean, I would like to kind of take a bigger role in the automotive industry and in the shop as well. I feel like just being a technician is like a gateway to many other things, because now I understand like the back side of things. Shoot, if I understand the front side of things and then understand management, possibly own dealer one day. But yeah, I definitely need to get one of your books, because that everything you said right there, that kind of sold me right there. And I hope for any other technicians watching the podcast, it kind of sold them on it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, and I appreciate your support. And yeah, if I can do anything to help you in that regard, for sure. And shameless plug, I do break down effective labor rate, gross profit, total parts, hours per RO, all those different metrics, like what they mean, what they are, and how to affect them negatively as well as positively. So it's there as well.
There's a lot of information that people could use, and technicians. I mean, that's just what we're talking about. But technicians, for example, demand more money, but understanding what goes into the process behind the service department in a shop and what, like you said, the different pay structures and stuff like that is a lot of things that people don't know. And so it's like, if you understand those, you can build value in your thought process, you can build value in yourself, and ultimately build value in the place where you work, and hopefully expand that. And, you might even make more in the process, just understanding how it works versus putting your fist down on the table and saying, I need more money.
Yeah, and I agree. And the theory behind that, and I don't even know if I want to say it's a theory because I've lived this, right? I've been a technician and a service advisor, and what I've experienced is that as a service advisor, I was engaged, like very engaged and focused on getting my technicians as many hours as possible. Like I got so excited for that kind of stuff. Like I was like running to the shop. Like I sold 5 hours on this ticket. I couldn't wait to tell tech. I knew that was a big deal, right? That's their pay that helps them and their families and stuff. Of course, I'm getting paid off of it, but that partnership piece is so important.
Mhm.
And what I found after doing that for my technicians, and I across 4 dealerships, mind you, what I found by doing this for my technicians across 4 different dealerships, 2 different regions of the U.S., and I'm talking luxury and import, like everything in between, like there's no demographic that didn't work. All of a sudden my technicians started caring about like what gets me paid a little bit more. They started worrying about CSI and things like that and asking me how things are going in that regard, and getting vehicles done a little bit ahead of time so that I had time to call the customer back and make sure that things were going smooth and all that stuff. And they supported me more because I was supporting them, and there's that reciprocity there. And I say that to say, like, as a technician, be interested in what gets your service advisor paid and what their KPIs, your key performance indicators are, because if they're out there shaking down hours for you, you should be in the shop shaking up something for them. And if you're both doing that, like this is the dynamic duo. This is how everybody starts making a lot more money. The infighting, and I see this a lot too, because I try to bridge the gap between advisor and technician. And I was responding to comments today on some young lady's post, because the debate's going on again. Who has the hardest job in the dealership, the advisor or the technician, right? And it's like, guys, like nobody goes to the grocery store and wants to find the best apple and starts looking through the oranges, right? Because we don't compare apples and oranges. And that's what we shouldn't be doing with technicians and advisors. I've been both. They're both difficult, but they're both a different type of difficult. One's basically a white collar job, and the other one's basically a blue collar job. So to compare the two and say, well, one's harder than the other is just honestly a waste of everybody's time. But I still see the comments in the comment section from, unfortunately, technicians that, oh, we could just replace them with iPads and kiosks and we don't need them. We have video inspections now. So what's the point of having an advisor? It's like, man, there's so much more involved in that role than you're giving it credit for. And I'm not even really upset about that. The whole point is like, if that's how you talk to service advisors online, how do you talk to your service advisors in real life? That's your lifeline to the customer. That's the one feeding you the flat rate, but you're also complaining that your flat rate is low. So is there something that the technician in that scenario can do to help themselves?
I feel like transparency throughout the dealer and like, I don't know, monthly sit downs with between service manager, technician, and advisor will kind of help that. Cause like the technician, from our point of view, we were talking about like the relationship the customer has with the service advisor earlier. The technician really doesn't even like, a lot of times, like even I don't really think that. I don't really think that this one customer has been going to this one single advisor for the past 10 years, and that it really matters that. I mean, the first thing they talk about usually every time I talk to a service advisor, I'm like, hey, how do you shake them down? Like, how do you even get to know them? Well, they talk about their life. They talk about what they ate yesterday. They talk about what conversation they vent to them. Like just today, this lady ended up spending like $2,000, and she was telling the service advisor that it was a very tragic story on my mind. I'm not even going to tell it, but it was a crazy story. And then he goes, flips the script and then sells her a $2,000 job. But it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So the relationship between the customer and the service advisor is really important, but I feel like it needs to be more said to the technician. That's where that transparency is kind of involved. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd love to double down on it and totally agree. And also remember, like when the service advisor is talking to the customer, that service advisor is representing the technician. They're advocating for that technician. And when they go back to the technician, they're then advocating for the customer. They're that go-between element, right? So when I, as a service advisor, am building a relationship with my customer, I'm building that relationship also for you with that customer, right? Because they service through me to you, and I will represent you in that regard. And sometimes the conversation will be about the great certified technician staff that we have here at ABC Motors, for example. So that relationship building piece is incredibly important, not just for that one advisor, but for the whole shop. And this is how powerful it is. When I was working at my last Ford dealership, I got moved over to the Lincoln side because they were having some turnover issues over there. So I had to take my blue Polo off. I had to put on a black one, and I had to go work luxury for a little while, which was my first adventure into that world. Very interesting, going from F-150s to Lincoln Navigator customers, but I got through it. But I was very surprised that once I walked over to the other end of the building and I was on my new service lane, one of my F-150 customers pulled in. It's like, "Hey, how'd you find me over here?" He's like, "Well, they told me that you moved over to this side and I want to work with you." I was like, "Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to write up your F-150 because I work on the Lincoln side now. I kind of work for Lincoln now." And he said, "Well, can you check and see?" And I said, "Of course I can." So I went to the manager. I'm like, "Hey, one of my F-150 customers, he doesn't want to work with any of the other Ford advisors. He wants to work with me because he has a relationship with me. Can he do that?" My manager said he can, but he pays Lincoln prices. And this guy had like a 200,000 mile 2008 F-150. I was like, I don't know if this is going to go. I went back over. I'm like, "Hey, man, you can work with me over here, but if I write you up over here, you got to pay Lincoln prices." He said, "Done." Like, that's how much he wanted to work with that one advisor, me in that scenario, but that's every advisor. That's how powerful it is. And that's what I always say, that price is only an issue where value is absent. So if we present value and things of that nature, that price isn't really an issue anymore. And we can help our technicians make a lot more money on flat rate if we take that energy to our customers.
Exactly. It's all about the presentation and like the service lane and stuff. I mean, and especially like in the waiting room, even like me and Curtis were talking about this like the other day. I mean, shoot, if the waiting room is like a little bit better for the customer, you can I mean, that's kind of where the labor rate for the shop is also in, like just the waiting room, the things, the uniform that the technician wears, the uniform that the service advisor wears, everything kind of flows into that for the value for the customer. So each shop isn't like racing down to the bottom to find the lowest price, because no one wins in that race. We're just going to keep on, "Oh, I'll do those control arms for you for the cheapest amount of labor you can possibly have," and then screw up your car. And then you're back in stage one where you're at an expensive dealer. And now you have to do even more work because you decided to go with someone cheaper.
Yeah, I got a good question here I want to sneak in. Well, actually, a comment to your thing about the value of service advisors. I've heard many stories where customers will switch brands completely to follow their service advisor. They'll buy a whole new car just to work with a person for the life of that car, which is unbelievable. And it's just a testament to what you just said. But something that I've been kind of mulling over recently is, I actually just posted about it. Well, today, but it will be later when this actually comes out. But shops keep raising the labor rate, and technicians aren't necessarily seeing that, but customers have to pay that. And so my question is, when does that become an issue? Because we talk about value of the dealership, but if that shop raises that, not from a technician standpoint, but when the shop raises that labor rate and the customer's like, "Okay, I'll pay. And then it gets to that point where it says, "Okay, like this is just too much." And then if the dealership can't argue, or not argue, but present a high enough value in the service that the dealership is providing to the customer, like where does that become like an issue? Like what more can dealerships do to provide value to boost that up? I mean, that labor rate is going to be over $300 in a year, no doubt. I mean, I'm just like, it feels like we're reaching a tipping point here.
Yeah. So I'm not privy on this data specifically, right? So I want to preface by saying that, but I do know that hourly rates have gone up in certain shops. I've just seen it personally, right? And we do know that technicians, for the most part, haven't seen an hourly increase to their flat rate or what have you. A common argument that I see in the comment sections quite often, I guess this is the way the stuff used to be back in the day, but I wasn't alive then, so I don't know, that technicians got 50% of the labor rate, right? So if the labor rate was $100 an hour, the technician got 50% of that. It's like,
I've heard 33.
yeah, I mean, I've heard 50, 33,
Yeesh.
and sometimes you kind of do the math on it. It's like, I don't know if that actually could work or not. But I'm not going to say one way or another, because like I said, I'm not well versed in this area. However, I will say this, and this might be another thing that stings a little bit, but I say it with tough love. I really do. I think I'm a huge advocate for technicians. Technicians really need to take stock in what makes them personally valuable to their organization. And the reason I say that is because just fixing cars isn't enough to show your true value to your employer. And what I mean by that is if I'm hired to sweep the floors and you walk in and the floors are clean, does that make me the MVP of the entire store? No, because that's what I was hired to do, right? There's nothing like extraordinary about me doing specifically what I was hired to do. So let me say, I believe that technicians do the most important function in the entire automotive service industry. Why? Because without them turning the wrenches, diagnosing the vehicles, and doing the things, we wouldn't have an automotive service industry to be talking about. So it is very valuable what they do, but just fixing the cars is unfortunately, and this is tough to hear, this is what you're expected to do. It's kind of why you were hired. So I say that because I don't think that technicians are best served by sitting back and saying, "Well, I fixed that car, so I deserve a pay raise." Like, well, what's your productivity been month over month? Have you always been at or above the standard? Like, how do you work with others? Are you a mentor to the junior technicians? Like all this other stuff that kind of plays into it. Are you up on your certifications? Do you jump on training opportunities when they come? I know that's a bit of a troubled area and sometimes those training opportunities don't come. But when they do come, do you do those things? How long are you on the tool truck when it's here? Do you need to be there that long for a new long necked ratchet? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's other
Okay.
things that play into it that help you be extraordinary and truly display your value. That's my way to answer your question, Curtis, because if they can find ways to show their extraordinary value, I think they'll have a stronger ground to stand on to argue for a higher labor rate per hour when those labor rates are rising. So while I can't speak to like what each business should do with its own funding, maybe they have a very clear reason for their increase in labor rate, and it has nothing to do with what they can afford to pay employees, for example. But if technicians have been taking their time over the last couple of years to give themselves a solid foundation to argue from for that additional pay, I think it would serve them well.
That is
Yeah, I mean,
definitely
I definitely didn't say it to trap you or to get you to say
No,
anything
you're good.
crazy,
You're
but
good.
I know a lot of the conversations we have on social media and through the comment section are very surface level, and there's unfortunately not enough deep dive into the what goes on behind the curtain, if you will. And so I think just explaining it from a surface level and saying is, technicians out there are not going to want to hear what you just said, and it's been something that I've been trying to talk about since I've been doing content is like, can you show up on time? Can you do more than just fix a car for the company or the dealership? Can you do great video inspections? Can you mentor? And then just the list is, like you said, endless. And so I think it's hard. It's very hard. I say that it's hard to look in the mirror and say, hey, what can I do better besides my job to then build my value and ask for something that's
Yeah.
outside of the normal?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example of it. Just recently, I'd say maybe 4 weeks ago. My as you create content, you hit those like points where you stagnate and you just start kind of getting in that like very low view jail, right? And it's like, what's going on with the algorithm? Why is it not treating me right? That was me recently, and this happens. I've been doing social media for like 5 years,
The life of
and
a
it
content
happens. It
creator.
just it just goes and it goes and it goes. But I hit one, and it was like not ending, and I was like, man, what's going on? And at first, I was like, oh, the algorithm. The algorithm, TikTok's been in a weird spot politically. Like the algorithm's screwed right now. That's what it is. It's definitely not me, right? And then I sat down and I thought about it. I'm like, well, what am I like? Am I even trying anymore? Like I was just doing skits and skits and skits and skits and skits, and I was just kind of like doing them last minute. I really wasn't thinking about it. Like it's been a long time since I had a list running of like content ideas. I've just been kind of like just going with the flow. I said, well, I put myself on autopilot. Of course, I was getting like lackluster results. So I reinvented. And that's what you got to do as a content creator, as a creative. You got to reinvent like every couple of months. So I reinvented. I started doing different content. I set up the studio here. I started doing things in here instead of the Jeep so often. I only do one skit a week, and I started doing some different things and started seeing incredible views. As a matter of fact, I increased my statistics. I average about 3 million views a year on TikTok. And since I started reinventing myself over the course of like last 30 days or so, I'm at 3.5 million. So I've increased my yearly views by 500,000 views by reinventing myself, by looking in the mirror and saying, it's not the algorithm, it's you. How do you increase your value on social media, for example? And that lesson plays into every role, right? Like, how do I increase my value to my employer to argue for more additional income that would match my value better? What is my value? How do I measure that? How do I make it better? Those are things that every position, this isn't just like pick on technician time. Like this is, everybody's got to do that. Service advisors included, service managers, anybody that's on an income somewhere, they have to take stock in themselves and say, what are my key performance indicators? Where do they stand right now? What can I do to solve that? And how can I do that now? That's what you got to do.
Hard to
That
have
is
those.
great. That is even great for me to hear right now because recently, like personal life has gotten a bit personal. And so like I've kind of like social media has kind of put me at like a cruise level where like I know I'm on cruise, but then like I haven't found like the exact motivation to kind of reamp myself and kind of change how the content was going. Cause I'm right now, basically what you just said, I'm doing a lot of skits. That's exactly what I'm doing. And I've just been like trying to like find the motivation to get back into doing like DIY tutorials or even doing like recently Curtis has been doing a lot of like just talking about topics on camera in the vehicle or somewhere else, and he's like he'll rant about something or give his like create a debate for the comment section, and like I'll be trying to start and doing that stuff. Like just hearing you say that, Chris, that was good. That was good. Thank you very much for that.
Of course.
Yeah, I've been trying to set an example for accountability where I'll have a conversation with or a thought process with myself and post it and just prove that like, none of us are perfect, and have that where I recognize what I could have done better and what I'm doing better, and then talking about it. I mean, we only got 3 minutes, right? So it's not like the greatest amount of time, but just setting the example and saying, hey, it's okay to be wrong, or it's okay to look in the mirror and say, hey, I could have done this better. And it's easy to blame the algorithm. It's easy to blame your manager. It's easy to blame the car that cut you off on the freeway. And it's just like, we all in life could just be like, take a deep breath, step back and say, how could I have made the situation a little bit better for myself? What could I have done differently? So I think you bring up a fantastic point there, is just,
Yeah, and it heals the automotive industry as a whole too, right? I mean, the saying goes, don't, make sure your house is in perfect order before you start judging your neighbors. So if I'm going to sit online or sit somewhere and complain about the industry and tell everybody how the industry should be, I should take stock in myself and what value do I present to the industry in this moment right now? Make sure that I'm in perfect order before I start telling everybody else how the industry should run.
Well said.
it's okay to, even if in the moment you feel that way, and then 3 weeks later you maybe realize you had said something or done something wrong, and admitting that or talking about it is like, that's human. We're human. It's normal for us to do those things, and exposing that side of ourselves, I think, is very important, as a content creators, but also as examples and mentors, and for people that maybe look up to us, and just being like, hey, we're real people. We make mistakes, and here's us talking about it and moving forward, learning from it. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, honestly, I love mistakes. It's a weird thing to say. I love mistakes. I really do. I get all fired up when I mess stuff up. I get really excited. Like I walk up to people, I'm like, I screwed this up today. Can you believe this? Like, I actually really do. I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, I really do think that because you have to be able to seek the opportunity that is within adversity. It is always there. Right. I was known as the service advisor that would handle all the problem customers. Like everybody's like, Chris, why do you want to deal with everyone's messed up customer? Like service advisor A would say something terrible to this customer. And then service advisor B, Chris, is the one that has to take the customer over, potentially get a bad survey and fix the situation. Like, Chris, why do you want to deal with these people? And the reason is because the bar is set so low. Like this person just got like their mother insulted by the other advisor. Like as long as I don't do that, I'm going to do better than the other advisor. Like the bar is so low. And I can take that relationship and turn it into something truly beautiful, because even though it was an adverse situation at first, it was a heat case I had to handle, there was always opportunity in that. And I was totally game for that.
that's great insight. I can really respect that. And I've never been a service advisor, but I hear enough stories to understand that.
You should try it, Curtis. You should try it out.
Well, maybe I'll find myself.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my trajectory is a little different here. I don't know.
No, for sure. For sure. But just for
But
fun. Everybody should try it for a day, just for
Shoot,
fun.
I ended up even I took the service advisor ASC.
How
Just
was
like
that?
yeah, it was good. It was overall it was kind of easy. It was easy to
Yeah.
pass. I ended up passing it. But it was good seeing like the sublet repairs, kind of like
Oh yeah.
individually, like how you talk to a customer and stuff. There were some tricky questions where I was like, dang, what do I do in this situation? Like both customers are yelling at me, the phone's ringing. Like, what am I going to do in this situation? But like, it was great to take that. And I think, the service advisor role is definitely important. But also on top of that, I kind of wanted to ask you, just in case there's anybody on here that is fresh into the automotive industry and that like first year period that is thinking about getting out and that is thinking straight negative thoughts, what would you have to say to them to kind of like, like to reinvent themselves almost, and also to look at themselves besides what you've already said?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in your first 6 to 12 months of employment in the automotive industry and like you set your sights on this, I mean, you nobody's an indentured servant. Like you applied for this job and you took it on. So obviously you had some degree of interest in this role. 6 to 12 months is not long enough to gauge anything. Especially, I mean, these are young people, right? These are probably like 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, people just jumping into the industry. At this age, this young age, it's hard to like see past 12 months, but I encourage you to attempt your best to see past that 12-month mark and know that it really takes a couple of years at least to really kind of solidify into any industry. So I think what you might experience is that if you dip out of the automotive industry, if you truly don't love it, then by all means. But if you haven't given it enough time to fall in love with it yet, what you'll do is you'll leave this industry, you'll start another one, and you'll start at the base level again. So you basically be starting over, and maybe you won't like that industry either. So sometimes it's an acquired taste, and you have to stick with it for some time, and just give it that time, especially if you've already invested in tools and the schooling and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you're changing oil right now and you feel like it's never going to end, but ask yourself, have I ever approached my manager and said, hey, I have aspirations beyond changing oil, or am I just waiting for it to fall out of the sky? So make sure you do yourself a few favors before you decide to pull that trigger.
Yeah,
Well said.
that's time. Give it some time and give it to more than a year and let it soak in, because like we said earlier, if you invest all that money into tools and a toolbox and then 12 months in, you're out throwing it out the door, you're just living in that tool debt. And I know that doesn't feel good. Chris, we really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? I know TikTok's big. Can like plug it. Let's plug all the platforms. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube under the username at Chris_MF_Craig. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Christopher Craig. I'll be there.
Wait, what's the
Perfect.
MF for? Oh.
The MF, that is I'll tell you the MF. So I won't tell you what it means. But what I will say is the reason why it's still there. So when I first created my TikTok account, I was working at my second dealership, my Ford dealership in Nashville. And it was during COVID. And I was like sitting at my desk. I was essential. We weren't doing anything. So we all jailbroke our like iPads. We're watching Netflix on them and stuff. And I was like bored out of my mind. We had no customers because it's COVID in Nashville. So I downloaded TikTok for the first time. I was like, I'll scroll this and see what it's like. I had to create a username. Of course, I'm, a craphead like service advisor. I put Chris MF Craig in there. I'm like, that'll be my username. I had no intentions of ever creating content until I eventually did. And then I had no idea it would ever turn into anything until it eventually turned into at least something that's enjoyable to do, at least across 5 years. And people have asked me like, hey, you're like a customer service representative guy, like you're working with brands. It's like, you ever think about like changing that? And I said, no, I don't, because I never want to take myself too seriously. So I leave it just the way it is.
I mean, it has a nice ring to it when you say it out loud. Like you're like, you say it, and I'm like, oh, that
Yeah.
has like, I'm like,
It
okay,
flows off
it
the
flows
tongue,
nicely.
and
No,
it's
it
the
definitely does.
easiest way to know if somebody recognizes you in public, because they will say the whole thing. It's like, oh, you must watch me on social media, because not one other person in life would ever call me that. So
No, that's definitely a good way to look at it. Never taking yourself too seriously, because then you kind of lose sight of things and lose sight of who you
yeah,
really are.
internet's not real, guys. It's not real life. I can tell you it's not real. I know we're at time here, but I can tell you it's not real life, because I had somebody DM me one time. You see how my cheeks are a little rosy right now? That's my complexion, right? And I do my videos in my Jeep in the South in the summertime, and Jeep roofs have like playground plastic. It's very hot. So my cheeks get flushed. And I had somebody DM me one time, a follower, a long time follower, I assume, and said, hey, Chris, I noticed in your last post your cheeks were a little rosy red. I think you have skin mites. There's this really good ointment that you can use to get rid of that. And it's like, this isn't real life. Because if I was walking down the street in the summertime and my cheeks were red, no stranger would grab me by the elbow and say, hey, I think you got skin mites right there. So social media is not real life. Don't take it too seriously, but it is fun.
Please, say it, Curtis.
I'll tell the story. What do you take us out of here? Jay, take us out of here. I'll tell it after.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of Way the Technician podcast. We had a wonderful, insightful, smart, wonderful guest on here, Chris Craig. Thank you very much for being on here, man. But we are going to head out.